the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
Don't miss Scott's Days at Ace. It's our biggest lawn and garden sale of the spring. So before you get to work on your yard, head into Ace now to save on Scott's, Miracle Grow, Roundup, Ortho, and more. Now through Monday only, stock up and save over $600 on select Scott's products across the store. And as always, the help is free. Spring is here, and that means so are Scott's Days. Only at your local Ace. Offers valid through March 20th at participating stores. Includes instant savings offers for Ace Rewards members. See store for details.
Blog Talk Radio.
Yeah, I suppose, hooray. Hi, everybody. This is Damn You Hollywood, and I'm Robert Winfree, your host for the evening. And tonight, I don't have a lot of histrionics or so on and so forth planned out for the opening here. I don't have it. Sorry. I will do better next time, and for those of you who have been complaining about it, well, here you go. Let's see what you think of this one. Tonight, Mark and I will be reviewing Kong, Skull Island, the latest entry into I forget who's doing these. Warner Brothers, I suppose. The MonsterVerse that they're trying to set up. And, the first King Kong movie since Peter Jackson's pseudo-epic from, 7-8 years ago. I forget the exact date. And, I don't know who's kind of godfathering these first few entries into this franchise, but they're doing a pretty good job so far. Mark, how you doing this evening? I know you loved this movie.
Hail to the king, hail to the one, kneel to the crown, stand in the sun. Hail to the king! Hail, 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 king! That's how I'm doing right now, baby. Oh, King Kong, king of the MonsterVerse, king of the beasts, king of the jungle. Oh,
none of those are actually
movie.
Titles associated with King Kong.
I can't hear you. You're not even speaking English to me right now. Oh, King Kong. Kong.
Okay, I'll try again. None of those are actually titles associated with King Kong.
You're breaking up really bad. It's like something's wrong with your mic. Anyway, I love this movie.
Hang on, are you being serious or not? Because my internet's been spotty today.
No, you're fine, sir.
Okay.
This is all gimmick, much like the swordfish shorts my wife bought me for our cruise. All a gimmick.
No, but you will wear the crap out of those, sir. We both know it.
Oh, no, I absolutely will wear the crap out of swordfish shorts, but we bought them specifically for it. It started with I wanted to dress my kids in sailor outfits for the sole purpose of making them look cute boarding a cruise ship. But we've come to a place in our lives we're spending an excessive amount of money on one gimmick for one day. I mean, we've done this once before. This is not the first time I thought of this idea. Well, the first time we went on a Disney cruise, we dressed my daughter. How old was Lily at the time? 3?
No, she's 2.
Oh, she was 2. I made my daughter dress up in a Navy outfit, a cute little Navy outfit. The only thing she was missing was a giant lolly, for the sort of good ship lollipop look I was going for. And everyone thought it was adorable, but it was absolutely a gimmick. Well, she's 6. My son will be 3 just about when this trip takes place in a few weeks. And I wanted to do it again, especially for my son, who I'm sure would have hated me for the rest of his life for dressing him in a Navy outfit. Not because he hates the military, God bless America, but more because he would have just hated the outfit. Because I would have put the hat on him and everything, would have pinned it to his head, would have stapled it to his head if he took it off. Anything for a gimmick. However, the point of all this is, so we can get back to the important subject, which is the king of the beast, King Kong, is that it's a lot of money. I mean, if you go on Amazon right now and start pricing naval outfits for children, it's a lot of money, man. These are not Walmart outfits. They don't come cheap. So I feel like that's just pissing money away for something that's going to amuse me and maybe get some, polite chuckles from the folks boarding the ship at Port Canaveral. But outside of that, kind of a waste of money. So instead, we decided on, my wife's making her own, we're making our own cruise ships. We're going to be those people, Radulich family cruise, have an anchor with the mouse ears on them. And then we bought, nautical shorts. My son got shark shorts. I got swordfish shorts. And my daughter got pink anchor shorts. And what kind of shorts you got?
I get anchor shorts.
What color anchors?
Blue.
And she got blue anchor shorts. My wife does. See? So we still got the gimmick. The gimmick didn't go anywhere. We just altered the gimmick to accommodate our lifestyle. You with me so far?
I am. You're kind of like that poor guy Duke the Dumpster from the old WWF days who Vince cut his salary because he actually wanted him to work as a garbage man around various cities while they were touring.
Touche. All right. Let's get on with this.
All right. Okay, again, as was previously mentioned, we're talking about Kong, Skull Island.
I have a question.
Now, the reason I gave...
All right. If your parents had forced you to dress in a naval outfit, like when you were 3 or 6, what would you have thought at the time?
I don't know. I mean, 3 to 6-year-old me is a concept so far beyond my capacity to actually understand at this point that it's an exercise in futility to ask.
Okay. You're in your 20s now, right? Your late 20s?
30s.
You're in your early 30s?
I am 31.
What if I dressed you in a naval outfit now to go on a cruise?
I would find you and I would hurt you for sending me on that type of cruise.
Skull Island, you were saying, sir.
All right, again, before we actually get into the movie proper, I think you were both a lot more excited about this movie and you liked it more than I did in final execution. This is also the second movie because apparently the whole, interconnected movies, shared universe crap is all the rage. All right? All the rage because, hey, Marvel did it and they're making, billions of dollars. So naturally, Warner Brothers and the DC...
Can you blame them?
A little bit. Hang on.
Okay.
Hang on. I can a little bit. I'll explain why. So Warner Brothers has the DC property, and they decide, it's working for this other comic book property. Let's do it here. Only let's do it completely ass backwards. And we'll screw up a couple of things, and we'll get a lot of divisive sentiment from people, and then we'll just throw out 2 movies, essentially back-to-back, that will be team movies, even though no one knows who half these people are. Oh, and that Flash show that's on TV, even though it kind of sucks, yeah, we're not even going to use that guy. We're gonna cast a different Flash member. And it's not really working for them at the moment, but we're going to see more as the year progresses. And then Universal was like, what can we do? Well, you see, back in the 40s, 50s, We had all of the classic Universal monsters. You had Dracula, you had Frankenstein, you had the Wolfman, you had the Invisible Man, you had the Blob. And they had several crossovers back in the day because Lon Chaney Jr. needed money, I assume. I joke. He did a fine job as Lawrence Talbot. So let's resurrect that. And it'll start with a terribly received Wolfman remake, despite some legitimate talent being involved. We'll have one of the worst Dracula movies ever put to film, and believe me, I am well aware of how much that's saying. And then the actual dirt worst Frankenstein movie ever conceived. And a mummy movie with the worst CGI I've seen from a major studio, and that's just from the trailers. And these will all tie together somehow. So right now, there's not a whole lot good in the whole shared cinema universe theme, because Marvel has hits and misses. And then a few years ago, I believe it was 2014, it was decided that it's time for a new Godzilla movie. Now, those of us who suffered through the absolutely abysmal Zilla, I refuse to call it by the other half of its name, from like 1989, starring Matthew Broderick, that really ought to tell...
Gojira. It was wonderful. Gojira. It was great. That had that Green Day song in it, and Rage Against the Machine. It was a fantastic movie.
Mark, I like you. Please quit giving me reasons to change that opinion.
Gojira. Sorry, go on.
Look, the only thing notable about that movie is that there are like 3 different voice actors from The Simpsons who do live action roles.
I can't wait till Godzilla King of Monsters comes out so that we can put the other Matthew Broderick movie on trial, and I go on the defense for that. That's going to be a great show.
You know, there's actually a handful of parts about that movie that I don't hate.
Really?
It's just, yes. Anyway, there's a few things about that movie that I don't hate. I find it if you take away Godzilla and make it a generic dinosaur movie, Crushes Manhattan, it's stupid. It has terrible dialogue. You clearly have a bunch of B-list actors, with all due apologies to Jean Reno, who is awesome. But, come on now.
I wouldn't call Matthew Broderick B.
In 1990? Yeah, he's a B-lister. Maybe even lower.
Hang on.
His biggest claim to fame in the 90s was being married to Sarah Jessica Parker.
I need to now defend the people. Like, would you please just review the movie? But now I feel the need to defend his honor. In 1990, he was in... in 1989, he had just done Glory. Glory was amazing.
Yeah, Glory was awesome.
And this is... then he does The Freshman. I don't know what Out on a Limb is.
It's not good.
He does The Night We Never Met. Then he's adult Simba in The Lion King, which was obviously
That's
good.
a voice role. Doesn't count.
All right. Then he's in Mrs. Parker and the Vicious Circle, The Road to Wellville, The Thief and the Cobbler. He's in The Cable Guy,
cared.
which was nominated.
No, do not bring up that abomination.
But he was nominated for an MTV Movie Award for Best Fight with Jim Carrey. I actually remember that now.
The point being, for a brief period of time in the mid-'80s, he was a thing because of Ferris Bueller. By the time we get to the mid-'90s, he's nothing.
This is bullshit. He was in War Games, for Christ's sake, which was nominated for a Saturn Award for Best Actor.
In the mid-'80s.
Biloxi Blues is a fantastic movie, sir.
No, it isn't.
Oh, God. Get on with this.
Here's my point. In the mid-'80s, Matthew Broderick was in a few good movies. By the time you got to the mid-'90s, no one cared.
He's in Manchester by the Sea. Wasn't that nominated for an Oscar?
Not because of him. And yeah, Casey Affleck actually won Best Actor for that, I seem to recall.
All right, then.
He was in Tower Heist a few years ago, if you need another reason to beat him with a stick, as far as his career goes. Look, my point is, if that movie is just a crappy monster destroys Manhattan movie. It's terrible. Again, bad. You have a weak cast. You have terrible dialogue. You have mediocre effects. But you have a generally acceptable popcorn movie that everyone can kind of laugh at because, you clearly ripped off the models from both the T-Rex and the Velociraptor in Jurassic Park. And we can all have a good laugh, and okay, there's some fun stuff. But when you attach Godzilla to it, I'm sorry, if you're entering into a property, there are expectations that must be met, or at least acknowledged, and it failed miserably. Anyway, the point here is you had Godzilla in 2014, which was a really it's one of my favorite movies. I really like that movie. I've been a Godzilla fan since I was a 5 or 6 year old kid, and was entranced by Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla at the video rental store. And the 2014 movie, well received. Not a perfect movie. I'm certainly not going to say that, but again, it was well received. A lot of people liked it. People were reminded that Godzilla kind of kicks ass. And now we've got Kong, and the decision was kind of made, okay, everybody gets a shared universe. We have all these monsters. People love destruction porn at this point in cinema history, apparently. Let's go that route.
Sure we do. Hell yeah.
And that leads us to Kong, Skull Island. Takes place in, again, the same universe as Godzilla. It is set earlier during the Vietnam War. Same agency. There's no subtlety about this being in the same universe as Godzilla. Just to be very clear, none whatsoever. This is very clearly setting up for the big monster mash, where Godzilla will beat Kong to within an inch of his life, threaten to burn his face off, and hang on. And Kong will then very weakly declare, "You're letting them kill Mothra."
Boo. Boo.
He actually won't say it. He'll just kind of point weakly to where Mothra is being obliterated by Ghidorah.
Get it?
And then Godzilla will go into a rampage.
Get it, everyone? That's a Batman v Superman joke. Get it? Mothra is a stand-in for Martha. Get it?
Yes. Thank you. I was about to explain it that way, so I appreciate you circumventing that.
Go
All right.
on.
Anything you want to say before I do my plot synopsis here?
I mean, look, I didn't have a lot of high expectations for this. Yes, I like monster movies. I didn't expect to hate it, but these movies don't have a great track record, and I'm not a longtime Godzilla fan. It's one of the reasons why I don't find the Matthew Broderick, and in being serious about this, I don't find the Matthew Broderick movie to be tremendously offensive. It's dumb, but, I think there's a certain level of dumbness that's acceptable in movies where large creatures destroy cities. And as long as I see large creatures destroy cities and it's competently shot, I'm fine with it. I just, not everything has to be, Osama, which was a artsy indie film shot in Afghanistan, which is phenomenal, by the way. Not everything has to be chocolat. Not everything has to be like Water for Chocolate. I too watch fun indie movies, folks. But I think there's room in this universe for silliness, and what's life without whimsy? So why not watch a giant monster destroy a city? Shut up. That being said, since I have no intrinsic attachment to the Godzilla character, and I just want to see monsters destroy shit, I much preferred the Pacific Rim to Godzilla. And I know Godzilla was done in all artsy, and you don't get to see him till the end, and they would start to show him and then cut away, and all you Godzilla people were all jerking off in the theater with that shit. And I was just bored to shit during Godzilla. So I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I'm just saying I was bored.
Oh, no, there's huge sections in the middle of that movie where it's like, hey, look, here's Aaron Taylor Johnson for no reason. Like, no.
Yeah.
This is not what we want to see.
No, unless they're going to make him, 100 feet tall and have him knock a building over. In any case, and then maybe not even then. But the point here is that going into Kong Skull Island, and knowing that it was part of this universe that was set up with Godzilla in 2014, I did not have a tremendous amount of high expectations. And after we hear Robert's plot synopsis, you'll get to hear why I thought this movie was amazeballs and set a high bar for the rest of the movies coming out this year. I'm ready to end the 2017 movie season. I mean, and Guardians of the Galaxy looks great too. But I'm almost like now afraid to see anything else because I don't know if anything's going to be as good as this movie. That's how strongly I feel about it. And I'm not even doing a gimmick or a bit anymore. I really felt strongly that this is one of the best blockbuster action movies I've seen probably in years, for a variety of reasons. It might sound hyperbolic to some of you, might sound like I'm going a little overboard, but I am prepared to explain where I'm coming from beyond a personal preference. But first things last, let's go ahead and hear your plot synopsis.
Alrighty. All right, we open in basically 1974, and I have a few gripes about this movie, very few, mind you, but they exist. Believe it or not, one of them is the elements of the setting, of the time setting, and I will get to that when we get to it. We start in the tail end of the Vietnam War. Because now we've just finally started getting satellites and being able to take pictures with them, and this is all brand new stuff in the mid-'70s. I mean, nowadays it's commonplace, and now we want drones that go everywhere instead of just satellites, but again, 70s. Well, through satellite technology, we find the titular Skull Island. It is an uncharted island surrounded by a perpetual storm, and I hate that. It's lazy and doesn't work, but perpetual storms don't exist in our planet given our atmospheric content and size, and there's any number of reasons they don't occur naturally. It is surrounded by a perpetual storm, and the government research facility Monarch, which was actually established in Godzilla, it's the thing that Ken Watanabe heads up. They specifically look into monsters like this. They want to get an expedition to the island because John Goodman, God bless him, was on a ship that was apparently torn apart by some kind of monster. We're not sure which one. I imagine Godzilla because he was at sea. And he's been trying to prove the existence of these things for years, and he's kind of been laughed out of various places. He uses contact with an old senator buddy in the waning days of the Vietnam conflict to get a military escort and an expedition to this island, and he sells it because, well, the Russians are about to find it too. Because they have a satellite that's going to pass over the same area in the very near future. We should be there first. Rah, rah, USA. They recruit a former British SAS operative in the form of Tom Hiddleston to be kind of their guide once they get on the ground in this primordial jungle that no one's ever actually set foot on as far as they can tell. Certainly no one's ever reported about it. And they are transported via helicopter by Samuel L. Jackson and his group of helicopter pilots. They fly through the storm in one of the few scenes that I just couldn't stand about this movie. Again, that's about it. They fly through the storm. They land on the island. Their big plan is to do a geological survey, which you actually do have to kind of set off some explosions, especially with 1970s technology. You can then map the shockwaves, how fast they reach, how far they reach, the intensity at which they reach. So it's a quasi-legitimate thing for mapping. But they're actually dropping these bombs to flush out King Kong, who emerges from the jungle in all of his glory and proceeds to destroy a bunch of the helicopters because they're blowing up his place, man. You can't have it. And they forgot to bring... I'm not going to make that joke. Anyway, the survivors then have a few days to get to the north side of the island where they will be extracted. They're separated after the crash. Samuel L. Jackson goes all... And this is another one of my gripes. Goes all Colonel Kurtz on us. Decides he must kill the ape. Combination of Kurtz and Ahab. The other group again, this one primarily features the war photographer, played by Brie Larson, I seem to recall, who is, along with, buffed up Loki, and they're going through the jungle, and they're all trying to both rendezvous and get off the island. The group with Tom Hiddleston encounters a human civilization on said island, along with an American fighter pilot from World War II, he and a Japanese fighter pilot shot each other down. They both landed on the island, and his friend is dead at this point. We now learn that Kong is not actually a bad guy. He's protecting most of this island and theoretically the rest of the world from another group of monsters that come up through the ventilation, through the geothermal vents, and if they get big enough, they're mean, they're nasty, they kill things. They're just not good. And Kong is the natural predator. His race is the natural predator of these species. He keeps them in check. And he's the last of his kind, so let's all feel bad for him, because Kong is always the last of his kind and must always elicit sympathy. The other group is, again, trying to kill him because he killed a bunch of Samuel L. Jackson's men. Understandable. They wind up rendezvousing. There's a bit of conflict because now Tom Hiddleston doesn't want to kill the monster. He understands its place in the ecosystem. And Samuel L. Jackson is Samuel L. Jackson. If he's not trying to kill something, he doesn't really serve a purpose.
Or he's throwing it off a plane.
He was trying to kill something.
This is true.
And so there's, again, conflict. Samuel L. Jackson sets up a trap that is about 80% successful. Tom Hiddleston stops him at the last minute. The giant, the big one of these things that now sensing, because he's like, apparently the big mother, or what they refer to as the big one for these other creatures, is a bit like, the Fallen from that awful second Transformers movie, who, several galaxies away from the death of Optimus Prime is able to instantaneously sense it and return to full power. I don't know. Emerges. We get the big final fight. Kong is victorious. The surviving members escape on the helicopter. Kong stares angrily into the distance like you do. And in our post-credit scene, again, photojournalist and Tom Hiddleston are brought up to speed on both Monarch's existence and, hey, you think Kong's the worst of it out there, he's actually the least of it. Because there's Godzilla, there's Mothra, there's Rodan, and there's the three-headed, armless, intergalactic flying space dragon that destroys planets. I don't know if that's the route they're going. That is actually like King Ghidorah's story in the old Toho series. I don't know if that's the direction they're going to be going in the new one. Anyway, credits have rolled. We get a reminder of Godzilla's roar because Godzilla is the king of the monsters. And we set up for... seriously, Godzilla's title is King of the Monsters. Actual thing.
False title. Unearned.
Yeah, right.
Monkeys greater than imaginary giant lizards.
First of all, Kong's an ape.
Ape, monkey, chimpanzee, whatevs.
Chimpanzees are apes.
Still better than imaginary giant fire-breathing lizards.
No. You see, Kong has a grand total of like 4 movies, and 3 of them suck. Godzilla's a proven multi-billion-dollar franchise stretching back over the past like 60 years. Godzilla is king of the monsters.
Apes better than lizards.
If you say so. I mean, hey, we only spent how many million years with giant lizards ruling the planet while apes and other primates cowered in fear or hadn't actually evolved?
And they're gone. Well, you just defeated your own argument. Podcast over. Because the lizards are gone now, and the apes rule the earth.
Apes do not rule the earth. You and Mark, humans are not apes.
We are the apes.
We are not the apes.
We are the planet of the apes. Have you seen
We
some
are
of
not, not for another couple of months when Caesar returns to kick ass.
All right, let's move on with this.
All right. Again, I have a few gripes that I would like to do after you provide your glowing endorsement of this movie, and I don't mean that negatively. Just I know you loved this movie. I'm prepared to. I'll say a few positive things first. I really had a lot of fun with this movie. I liked a lot of it. Again, my gripes are minor. I enjoyed the sum total of this. Now, here's where I get to use an object lesson. You see, I have yelled at people, Mark included, about the difference between I like versus good. Now, there are degrees to which there's overlap and things of that nature. But it's a constant source of aggravation to me personally that people say such and such was good when they meant, well, I liked it.
Right.
I liked Godzilla 2014 more than I liked Skull Island. However, as a general rule, I feel Kong is a more streamlined film. There's quite a few things that Skull Island does better than Godzilla did. And see, everybody, my head didn't explode, either metaphorically or literally. The ability to discuss things like that rationally is part of humanity. Let's all take a note from that.
Deep humanity.
All right. So, Mark, again, you wish to heap praise upon this. So, here's your platform. You have the bully pulpit, sir.
All right. This was not a movie I did a tremendous amount of research on before I went and saw it. I kind of wanted to just go in, see it. It's on the schedule because it's the big blockbuster that came out this past weekend. So no matter what, we were going to cover it, and we that's the show, folks. Cinematic universes, blockbusters, big things that go boom. We talk about it on this show, and that's what we do. But like I said before, this wasn't one where, as opposed to say Guardians of the Galaxy or Alien Covenant, where I've watched the trailer like 60 times in a row or anything like that. So that being said, I did not know a whole lot about it going into it. I honestly didn't know who was in it other than Samuel L. Jackson, because he stood out when they would show the commercials to me. I know Brie Larson is the gal they got to play Captain Marvel in that movie next year, and that's about as much as I know about her. Her
big thing was the movie Room from, I think, last year or the year before.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that because apparently she's getting a lot of criticism for this movie after her performance in Room, but that's neither here nor there at the moment.
I'll yell about that later.
In any case, yeah, that come later. I really just kind of went in. I saw it in the Dolby Theater, which, if you like to have your chair shake, was a fun experience for me. But I just, didn't know when it was taking place, didn't really know anything about it, and I just sort of let the movie unfold. And I was really surprised by what it was, because there's a tendency to just make these movies with a lack of care. They throw the tropes in there. They play it safe. You have your hero that you identify with. You have your monster. You have your action sequences. You have your love interest. You have your human villain that screws everything up. And then you have your final conflict. And that's all in there, by the way. Those things are in there, but it's not that their existence by themselves is bad, as we've said before. It's how you handle them. And the first thing I thought was really interesting about this movie, the thing I really liked about it, was that it wasn't just a monster movie, it was a Vietnam War movie that happened to also include a plot about a giant ape in a world full of monsters living beneath the surface of the earth that the monsters protect us from. And I was really fascinated by that approach. I could just talk for 20 minutes to an hour about the Vietnam stuff by itself, because that's how interesting I thought it was. That's how interesting I thought it was. At the beginning, they set up, we are pulling out of Vietnam, and you couldn't spend too much time on it because it really isn't that kind of a movie. But they spent a little bit of time just dealing with how that affects the soldiers in the field. The ones that accepted the mission and wanted to get the job done and felt like retreat was betrayal, and how that affected people psychologically. And this is all sort of summed up in the Sam Jackson character. By contrast, you have the soldiers, but they just want to go home. They're there to do a job. The job is over. Whether they finished it or not is not relevant. And they have girlfriends and wives and family to get home to, lives to live. And for a little bit of the movie, they actually focused on that. And it becomes a major sticking point for Sam Jackson's character. It's easy to write off his character as, oh, here we go, there's always one human in the bunch who's got to throw a monkey wrench into things and go crazy and, cause problems. But he wasn't just, mad, I tell you. He's the best kind of villain. He's the one that believes he's right. He's motivated by feeling betrayed. And then, he's in the situation, as summed up in his conversation with John Goodman after the helicopter attack, where he's like, where he realizes they've been had. He's like, we could have had an opportunity to prepare for this had you told us what it was we were really doing. You're the reason my men are dead. And he sort of takes that rage that he's feeling, he's been betrayed, out on King Kong, to the point where he no longer sees the forest for the trees. I was talking to somebody about it afterwards, and they were like, there's like elements of Apocalypse Now in this movie. That's really,
one of my gripes about this movie when we get to it.
See, I didn't think that was a bad thing. I liked those elements to it. I thought it gave the movie depth. Because if it's just a monkey throwing helicopters around, I would have had fun with it, more fun than I had at Logan, but it also would have been instantly forgettable, and the movie's not forgettable. I haven't stopped thinking about it. It's also a Vietnam War picture in presentation. The soundtrack plays an important role. Oh, it's all the ones you've heard before.
Another of my gripes.
I'll
explain when I get to it.
But those are done purposefully. It's not like they didn't know what they were doing. Those were put in the film because they are common refrains, commonly used in Vietnam War pictures, so they invoke those images, those feelings, those thoughts, those memories. So I thought that was very well done. Let me change to the actual other part of the plot of this movie, which is the MonsterVerse. I thought all that was handled well. My dad has this tendency, Christopher Radulich, he has this tendency to go, oh, that wasn't believable, therefore the movie is bad. And we've heard Robert Winfree also do the very same thing of, hey, physics doesn't work that way, therefore the movie sucks. And I'm okay with things not working the way that they do as long as they're consistently not working, which is different than what I complained about in, say, Skyfall, where you set up one thing, then you did something that was so implausible that it took me out of the movie. But like I said, as long as there's a consistent level of nonsense, I'm okay with it. Nonsense by itself isn't going to upset me. So take that all into consideration when I say the following. I thought the movie looked good. I mean, I really thought that the sequences involving Kong fighting the helicopters, fighting the little baby skull walkers, and then fighting the big mama at the end were all handled really, really well. I thought he looked good. I thought they really captured the essence of how an ape, theoretically, would behave. I thought there was an air of intelligence about this creature in the way they handled the sort of close-ups on the face and the eyes. It wasn't just a static, angry ape look. Excuse me. I have a bit of a cold on top of everything else. And again, it was just, so it looked good. It was competently done, and it was fun to watch. The helicopter sequence is intense. I don't use the phrase I was on the edge of my seat much because I'm generally not on the edge of my seat. As a matter of fact, I'm half the time trying to stop fight falling asleep at the theater, which I did. I momentarily nodded off during Logan at the early part of the movie. This one, I saw at like 10 o'clock at night, and I was literally on the edge of my seat during the helicopter sequence, and then at the end of the movie, I was like a little kid. During that whole escape sequence where Kong is fighting the mama, and especially after he gets knocked into the chains and he gets up and he whips the chain with the motorboat at the end of it, which to me looked like a morning star, but I remember now a morning star would be a ball with spikes on it attached to a chain.
It's just
I don't know
a ball
what you would
with
call
spikes on it. Morning star and mace are somewhat interchangeable. If there's a chain on the end of a stick with a ball, it's a flail. What Kong has is, I believe, more commonly referred to as a manriki gusari, which loosely translates to like a monkey fist. It's either a chain or a rope with something very heavy at the end. If it's a rope, you can just make a monkey fist knot. You can actually you can douse them and light them on fire. They're very great for katas. The movie Ninja Assassin, which was a glorious piece of garbage, featured a main character who used that primarily.
So when he pulls out of the chains and he hits the baby mama with the macaroni, I had to stop myself from cheering, and I don't do that sort of thing in the theater. That's how good it was. It was so fun. It was so the imagery that they were using, the technique in filming, and the CGI I thought were spot on. I wasn't once taken out of the movie. I want to address something that actually came up during the Catwoman on trial, and we were talking about the use of cat jokes, and I said, you're getting all uptight over the handful of cat jokes they make in the movie, or cat references, but I would like to applaud the filmmakers for the use of restraint. There was far less of that than they probably could have. There's certainly exponentially far less than in Batman and Robin in terms of ice and plant jokes. Far less than any jokes in the Batman 66 show on an average episode. So I'm not going to criticize the 2 or 3 times that they did it. They actually showed restraint. And I think that gets overlooked a lot of times, especially if you've watched enough movies and you realize how bad they can get. When they dial it back and they keep characters sort of, their performances somewhat reined in, and not everyone is chewing scenery left and right, there's something to be said for that. So what I'm referring to specifically is John C. Reilly's character. I thought John C. Reilly was the heart of this movie, as evidenced by the fact that he's the last thing you see proper before they go into the credits and then the final extra scene. I thought, his story was great. I thought it was the heart of the movie, and I thought his performance, look, this is the guy that was also in Step Brothers. Clearly, he can be a scenery-chewing boob if they want him to be. He was also in Walk Hard. Again, he can obviously light up a screen with nonsense. I loved him in this movie, and I generally hate his type of character. Here we have a character who, is obviously a little touched from being on the island, but he isn't so crazed as to become annoying within the first 5 minutes of his introduction. He serves as a normalization character. He serves as a guide. He has some very funny one-liners. I think one of my favorite parts of the movie is, he was like, we don't go that way. We should go this way. And they're like, no, we're going to go this way because we have to save my man. He's like, yeah, I've only been on the island for 25 years. What do I know? I thought it was great. Very underplayed. It needed to be underplayed. If you had a character that was so bizarre, I think it would have taken away from the movie. So again, another example of, I would like to applaud the filmmakers for the use of restraint. I would like to applaud the director for use of restraint in keeping his characters on the page and not all over the place. Tom Hiddleston is fine.
I think you mean forgettable.
Depends on your point of view, but I can see. I'm not going to argue the point with you. I was going to say he's sort of Action Man. He's I'm action lead man. I'm going to be
because
the voice of reason.
Every Kong movie has to have the 1920, the golden age of Hollywood, good-looking guy in that lead role.
He's actually, I wouldn't say the weakest part of the movie. He's the lead, so he should have been stronger, and he's just kind of there. But he's not. But there's nothing offensive about him. He's just there, and he's serviceable. Brie Larson is fine, also in the role that she's given. She's not incompetent in any way. I thought she played the part well. I actually thought the part she's given was interesting, as she's a voice of morality. A little expected. She, oh, look, the chick thinks the monkey's okay. All right, we got it.
It's a Kong movie. There must be at least one bestiality illusion.
Sure. But I thought she also, it didn't just come out of nowhere. She isn't, terrified the entire time, and suddenly she's like, oh, I see his soul. She was a peacenik, who starts the movie in conflict with Samuel L. Jackson, who I've already talked at length about. So at least it was coming from a place of she was inherently going to see the good in this character and inherently want to, apply for peace between, the entities. I got it. I thought she was fine with it. The other guys that played the soldiers, including the one that was Eazy-E in Boys in the Hood, which I thought was great, they were all fine. That's another case where the soldiers can be very annoying in these kinds of movies, and nobody really got on my nerves. This wasn't, as much as I love Aliens, a lot of the early dialogue in Aliens between the colonial Marines makes me want to eat a bullet. Because they're just so overly alpha and macho, which, again, is set up for the fact that they're all going to be meat.
You ever been mistaken for a man?
No, have you? It's just, this is so overly alpha, but they're going to be meat for the xenomorphs, so that's the setup. They at least didn't do that. They were all pretty reined in. Even the goofy one wasn't off the rails. He didn't descend into a sort of, Hicks-ish type, oh, it's a real pretty shit now, man, kind of a thing. So,
I
performances, I thought everyone was either, serviceable to average to outstanding, and the characterizations were very well written. Lastly, in terms of plot, I mean, is it the strongest, most densest plot ever? No, it's escape from an island of monsters. But again, it's not type; it's how you handle it, and I thought it was all handled well. So yeah, I mean, a solid A from me. This is going to be one that I'll probably end up buying when it comes on iTunes, and I'll watch it again and again. It's one I would watch with my kids at home. I don't think my wife would enjoy it, but I think my kids would get a kick out of it. And I don't think there's anything particularly bad in there. It's just it's Marines fighting monsters. I'm so sorry. Should say army. But it's soldiers fighting monsters. It's and I should talk about the Corey Hawkins and the scientists and everything. They're all fine too. Nobody was excessively bizarre or weird or stupid or taking me out of the movie. So that's it. That's really all I have to say about it in terms of a criticism. The people giving this a rotten review when we get to that section of the show, I have no idea where a lot of them are coming from. I've pre-read a lot of these, and it's like it goes right back to why we do the segment of they don't really know how to do their job. And that's not coming from a place of you didn't like the movie, so therefore you stink. It's when they talk, the kinds of things they're talking about, I don't understand how that is a legitimate criticism of the movie, but we'll get to it.
Yeah, that's really the point of that segment. It's not so much how dare you disagree with me. I've seen 3 movies that, if you either fall on the other side of where I've landed, I tend to think you just have suffered head trauma. Because, again, there's room for personal preference in all of this, and I'm fine with that. My other gripe with most critics is that they don't bother separating personal preference from objective criticism. Now, you want
Yeah.
objective criticism. You also want personal, because you're not here. I mean, again, the thing's competently shot. Consequently, you're not just, okay, it was a fundamentally well-made movie. You don't just want the bare facts. You also want the opinions of people whose perspective you generally agree with.
I just went 10, 15 minutes, and I'm pretty sure everyone knows where I'm coming from personally, but I also think I gave an objective viewpoint.
You
That's
did.
how
I'm just
criticism
talking
should be
generally.
done. No, I wasn't defending myself against you. I'm saying what you just heard me do is an example of, I think, how all criticism should be handled, at least with movies. But let's move on.
All right. Very briefly, again, I agree with most of what Mark said. I like the fact that they set this during the Vietnam War, let them play around with a few things. I'm not the biggest fan of the way Kong looked, only because I still remember, and before this movie saw a trailer for the next Planet of the Apes movie. I think it's War for the Planet of the Apes. And the apes in those movies have been so darn good, just visually. This is, I think, a notch below those ones, but it's not comical. It's just, again, best-looking apes in movies. The most recent Planet of the Apes series. Kong, about a notch below, but still a very, very realistic-looking creation. Let me think. Okay, because I agree with so much of what Mark said about the good points of the movie, I'm just going to go with a few of my kind of negatives. One, this bothers me only because I thought about it. I would really like a King Kong movie that doesn't reference Heart of Darkness. Just one. Just one King Kong movie that does not have a reference to Heart of Darkness. That would be nice. Didn't get it here. The Apocalypse Now references, which is Apocalypse Now is just an adaptation of Heart of Darkness. They were generally well done. Again, you have Samuel L. Jackson not quite chewing scenery as much as Marlon Brando did, but same kind of, man who has been pushed too far. You have the village that they approach on the boat. I mean, in the case of this movie, it's them leaving rather than them arriving, but there's very clear visual allusions to those sequences from Apocalypse Now. The soundtrack. I understand why they made the choices they did. And when I say this, understand that A, it's a very minor gripe, and B, I understand that the vast majority of you will not have this particular reaction that I did. It just got to be too much. It seemed like every 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes, our audience might not be, they might have forgotten that we're in a movie set in 1974, as though the giant title card at the beginning of the movie wasn't enough. So here's another song from that era. And that's more my gripe with it than, okay, Vietnam War era soldiers listening to Vietnam War era music. I'm fine. I'm down. They're not going to listen. It makes perfect sense. You're trying to evoke a specific feeling with your movie. I get it. And the first 2 or 3 I was okay with. The second, 4 or 5, possibly 6, like that whole sequence with, I forget what song it was, but when they're, at the human settlement, it's like, all right, we have clearly pushed this button a few too many times, guys. You're being a tad redundant at this point.
You have such an issue with the overuse of music. This is like your major gripe with Luke Cage, too, and I'm just starting to wonder, is it a music thing with you? You're, where you just get overwhelmed with too much music, which I can't. I mean, if I could have music playing constantly on an unending loop in my life, I would.
I like music. I like music in movies. I just, again, when it becomes repetitive for me, that's when I start complaining. That was my gripe with Luke Cage. My gripe was not, wow, there's music. It was, hey, there's 13 episodes. 7 of them will open with an actual 5-minute concert. That was my gripe.
I love that about the show. But let's not do the Luke Cage review again.
Again, first few, fine and dandy. Set in a jazz club, if it's just background music, sure. But again, like actual performance that they had to do for like 3.5 minutes per episode. It was just like, I wanted to fast forward through it. Okay, Luke Cage, just start the next episode. Oh, they're in the club. 5 minutes later. Okay, something actually happens.
Okay.
And that, again, that's my gripe here. It's not that they do it. I understand why they did it, and I appreciate why they did it, and it was effective the first 3 times. After that, it gets a little tiring.
Okay, I got it.
Tom Hiddleston is just kind of there. Again, if I had an overarching criticism rather than an individual one for like specific sequences or what have you, it's that this movie plays very much into every trope you could conceive of. And that's not inherently a bad thing. And it's handled well as a general rule. It just, I don't know, and this is probably more personal than objective as far as that goes. I don't like being able to know what's coming next necessarily, especially if we're taking the very predictable route to get there. And again, it's executed well. That is not my complaint here. You have, again, pretty stereotypical action man who barely even sweats despite sweltering jungle. You have journalist who's there for some reason, never quite made clear, but is necessary for basic movie construction.
She's there to take pictures and provide proof.
And
with her magic
subsequently does neither.
With her magic waterproof camera.
Waterproof 1970s era camera, mind you.
Yes. By the way, I mean, one of the reviewers did mention this, and I'm going to give them credit. It's not something that I've noticed this with the guys in one of the guys in movie fights, where there's just attention for detail and stuff like that. I don't know. I guess I'm just wired differently, but it's something that even I noticed, so I'll address it. So she's soaked. She's been knocked loopy into the water. She's saved by Kong. She's not even given mouth to mouth, but yet she's able to, suddenly regain consciousness. She coughs up the water. She lives. I'm like, whatever. I'm okay with all of that. She's in the boat. 5 minutes later, bone dry. Bone dry. Not even wringing out her hair. Like,
yeah,
right.
She has Michael Caine's magical drying shirt from, the third Jaws movie.
And somebody made a point of saying this movie looked like it was just shot, the scenes were just shot all over the place, and there was, no care about consistent editing. And that's the only place where I really noticed it. I'm sure there are other, if I watch it closely enough. But, I mean, it isn't as, offensive as one of the Halloween movies where, I'm pretty sure you could still see, the cut marks in the film, just how poorly that thing was edited. It's fine. I think you'd really have to be a stickler for detail to find other editing mistakes. But that one, if I noticed it, it's bad.
Yeah, I'll have to rewatch it with an eye for specifically the editing next time around, because I am a very detail-oriented person when it comes to film, as Mark and I have discussed in the past.
Bone dry!
Because, seriously, we've had this discussion where Mark's like, why can't you just not watch, why can't you just ignore these things? How do you pay attention to them? And because to me, they're not little blips that you can just gloss over. They are giant neon signs flashing, hey, look at me. That's how I perceive film in the world in some cases. I want to echo your sentiment on John C. Reilly's character and performance. He's odd, but he's not crazy, which is a very important distinction. And he's the only one who actually gets some emotion behind him. I mean, you do have Toby Kebbell, who I will never forgive, as I will never forgive anyone associated with the Four Stick movie. But him, just trying to get back to his kid feels a little like it feels stock in the sense that there's always a soldier who is trying to get home to his kid and writes him letters. When John C. Reilly actually talks a bit about his past, it feels so different from, again, stock, because he's been gone for so long from the world in general and his family and everything about Western civilization that he had, known, that his journey feels a lot, again, and since it is an emotional one, this is all that matters, it feels very different from what most of the other soldiers are doing. And he is the only one who really gets some emotion going with his performance. And I need to echo your just giving credit to that, because it was understated but effective. And it actually gave the movie heart that it really pretty desperately needed, especially after the only soldier that, again, we care about theoretically surviving is off by one of the skull crawlers. So I was a big fan of his performance. And again, there's specific editing things that, as I'm thinking about it, I can even kind of pick up on, but there's no real point. It's a thing, but it's not the biggest thing in the world. And again, on the whole, on balance, this is a very well-made movie. I think the only time when the CGI bothered me was during the helicopter attack. There's one scene where we spend a whole protracted shot inside the helicopter as one guy's half hanging out the door and it's spinning around, and the human looks pretty bad. But all the rest of it looks fine, and in large part I think that's because Ubisoft did a lot of the CGI for this, and they're a very big gaming company. Produce a lot of very high-quality video games, and some lower ones, but, nobody bats 1,000 unless you're Naughty Dog. And to me, that just makes all kinds of sense. If you have whole sequences of this movie, or any movie, that are just going to be done with computers, and are going to be people running or fighting, I don't necessarily go to the studio, to the in-house studio. If you've got Ubisoft is a multi-million, if not billion-dollar company, this is all they do. All of they make games, which are all computer-generated. Let them consult the actual experts on the topic.
I have to wonder, I know Sony is looking to envelope their film industry, their film studio within their gaming. That might be a big reason why. So much of these big expensive movies need computer technology. Why not have the computer technology people be in charge of that sort of thing? So that actually makes sense.
Wait, you mean a movie studio is actually doing something that makes sense?
Well, don't get crazy. It's Sony. Let's give them a chance to fuck it up.
I think I hear the sound of hell freezing over.
Like I said, these are the people that brought us Ghostbusters. Googly. Let's see what happens.
Well, look, they lost
so
much money on. Here's what happened: they lost so much money on Ghostbusters that they had to fold their film studio into a profitable entity.
All right, you ready for the money?
Just very, very briefly, if you haven't seen this, go. It's a fun action adventure monster movie. I mean, again, I have my complaints. They're minor, and very few of them are wholly craft related. Few of them are, but again, generally speaking, not. This is a fun time at the movies. I encourage you to see it if you're on the fence about it. Then rewatch Godzilla because Godzilla killing that last bug. No, Godzilla had two. I marked out in the theater when I saw Godzilla twice. I had two legitimate professional wrestling reference mark out moments that I had to stop myself.
Everyone take a drink.
Over.
God, that was another one where I was fighting sleep. All right,
and I don't blame you. Again,
folks.
there's huge sections in the middle of that movie that it's like, come on, guys, what are we doing?
Yeah. All right, let's talk money.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money, money.
Dollar, dollar.
All right, Kong, Skull Island, baby dolls. Production budget of $185 million, currently sitting at a worldwide take of $151 million. 66 domestic, 85 foreign. Number one with a bullet.
Well,
Weekend.
with a bullet might be a bit of a stretch.
Knocked Logan out of the top spot. The movies that this weekend went something like this. Kong came in at number one with $61 million. This is domestic. Logan dropped to number two with another $38 million. And Logan is now the number one movie in the world. It finally knocked out 50 Shades Darker. Domestically, it might still be. Hang on. Domestically, I think it might still be the Lego Batman. Yeah, the Lego Batman movie is still in first place in America, but by a small margin. It's up by $3 million.
If you went to see that movie, you should feel badly about yourself.
Shut up. I have kids first. For God's sakes. Which I made them watch the Justice League Unlimited episode tonight where Batman sings the blues. Which,
I like that episode.
Non-blues play. I know, it's great. Wonder Woman gets turned into a pig. It's fantastic. Anyway, so Lego's
Zatanna
number one
shows
in
up,
America.
and Zatanna's awesome. We need more Zatanna in the world.
Like, I'm trying to convince my daughter to dress up as Zatanna for Halloween, and then I want to get my son to be the other superhero that's in this one, who I couldn't quite catch his name, but he's running around in a loincloth and a luchador mask, and he talks to animals. And my wife wants to know why I'm encouraging my then 3-year-old to run around in an animal loincloth and a luchador mask, and I'm like, I don't know why you're not encouraging him. But that's neither here nor there.
I'm sorry. Does she not? I've known you for roughly less than half the amount of time she has, and I know why you're encouraging your son to do that. You just needed an excuse. You got one.
Logan's number 2 in America. Split's number 3. 50 Shades Darker is 4, and Get Out's number 5. Get Out's actually doing very well. Universal's having a hell of a year so far. That had a production budget of $4.5 million. It's currently sitting worldwide. It hasn't had a foreign release yet. But Universal's Get Out is at $113 million. They are. This is the Jordan Peele movie from Key and Peele, and they are just carrying this guy around the lobby of the Universal Studios building. Jesus Christ. Anyway, so Lego, Logan, Split, 50 Shades Darker, and Get Out. That's the domestic. Worldwide.
And Get Out won't play well worldwide.
Yeah. We're at Logan, 50 Shades, Xander Cage, The Great Wall, and Your Name, which is a foreign movie. Kong isn't even in the top 10 just yet. But it's it still had a great weekend. There's certainly nothing to sneeze at here. I'm just kind of reading from the wiki. In terms of box office, it was projected to gross $40 to $50 million in its opening weekend, and worldwide at $110, $135. The film made $20.2 million on its first day. So it was better than expected with $61 million its opening weekend, defying the film's initial projections by 35%. Its opening is higher than the $50.1 million posted by Peter Jackson's King Kong, but considerably lower than the $93 million debut of Gojira 2014. In IMAX, it made about $7.6 million from 382 theaters, repping 12.5% of the film's total opening weekend. I don't need to read.
It's because Godzilla actually has a fan base and is awesome, whereas Kong has to regrow some of that.
Yeah, okay.
No, seriously, after Peter Jackson's version of Kong, which, while I enjoyed, is fraught with problems. You have to rebuild the audience for the character in the new context after Godzilla. Everybody knows Godzilla.
Right.
And especially within the context that he's presented. Presenting Kong alongside other monsters when they're not, the stock bit of, he's going to chase Brontosaurus and fight the T-Rex, is something that you have to reintroduce people to.
According to box office experts, the film's going to need to make between 450 to 500 million worldwide in order to break even, which I think it does. I think
Has it been released everywhere? And it's sorry.
Yeah, well, it's been released worldwide. It actually did the best it had the best opening in Vietnam, where it was primarily shot with a $2.5 million opening. Sorry, this is the biggest opening of all time in Vietnam. It's not the biggest opening worldwide. The biggest opening worldwide looks like it was United Kingdom and Ireland with 7.6 million, Korea 7.4, Russia 6.2, Mexico 5.7, France 4.1, Taiwan 3.6, Australia, mate, 3.6, Brazil 3.4, Germany 3.4, Malaysia 2.65, India 2.4, Spain 1.6, Italy 1.6, and then back to Vietnam again. So whether or not it makes the 500 million mark, I mean, I think it does. I think we said this was going to be, if it doesn't make the top 10, I think it'll be close. I just think, there just might be more movies that make considerably more money than this one does. I'm not going to read through the fucking list again, but there's a lot.
Suffice it
there's
to
plenty
say,
of movies coming out this.
One of them is coming next week.
Yeah, well, I'm about to get there. I think I'm going to take a guess. It settles between 600 and 700 million. It's got strong word of mouth. We'll get to the Rotten Tomatoes thing in a second, but suffice it to say, surprisingly, this is certified fresh at 80%. It's actually higher than the movie that's coming out next week, which is going to kick its ass. So we'll talk about that in a moment. Actually, we'll talk about it now. Here's the problem. Next week is Beauty and the Beast. And while it's got not a great aggregate Rotten Tomatoes score at, I think it's 60% right now, it's Disney. It's one of the most successful modern Disney remakes, or based on one of the most successful modern Disney princess movies of all time, one of the most beloved princesses of all time. Everyone loves Beauty and the Beast. Everyone's going to go see Beauty and the Beast. It's a family movie. It's a formula that works. I think the biggest criticism of it is they had this, Cinderella, they actually did something with. They, good, bad, or indifferent, they added a backstory. They fleshed out the characters. They changed it from what it was as an animated feature, which was essentially a 90-minute Tom and Jerry cartoon with a ball dancing scene, and actually turn it into a movie about Cinderella. And there's no such change in this one from what I understand. It's like a literal translation, and Emma Watson was better off in the Harry Potter movies. We'll talk more about this next week, but I think despite all of that, no one's – listen, my daughter is 6. All of her contemporaries are going to go. All of her contemporaries' mothers are going to take them, and some of their dads are going to go. This, Beauty and the Beast is probably going to be our first billion-dollar movie this year. Whether or not Fast and the Furious follows, certainly Guardians will. Guardians looks like it's going to be incredible. Pirates, who knows? So anyway, I don't want to get into all that. And the Transformers movies have been trending near the billion anyway, so who knows? But that's been the trend. With that said, the reason I am bringing it up is there doesn't leave a lot of room left for Kong to pull in more money, which is why I think it's currently sitting at 160. I think it gets to around, by the time its run is completely done, it settles in between 6 and 7 and then just stalls. I can't see it going any higher than that, but I don't think it goes under 500. At least I hope it doesn't, for the sake of the MonsterVerse. And it's too good to not be profitable. So, I generally don't cheer for movies like that. I generally don't cheer for movies this hard, but this one I'm actively advocating. Go save this movie. Save the movie. If you haven't seen it, and for some odd reason you're listening to this review, go see this movie. Spend your money, see it twice. Anything else you want to talk about as far as the money goes?
I just want to laugh briefly at you saying this is too good not to be successful.
Why?
Because I seem to recall of having used basically that same argument in the past and roundly being shouted down with, well, if it didn't make it, it didn't deserve it.
And in most cases, I believe that. This one's better than that.
That is fundamentally untrue. I have made that case about movies that are of much higher quality than this one.
Name one. Name five.
Okay, hang on.
I bet they're all about gay cowboys eating pudding.
No. I completely understand independent movies and smaller release schedules being considered differently. That's not an argument I'm prepared to make in this instance. I'll have to look back at what we've reviewed, and I will provide you with a list offline.
Okay. All right. Your turn.
I just want to say I'm thinking $500 million. I have a hard time seeing it get all the way to $6 million, unless it hasn't been released in China.
Don't think it. I just read them all to you. And it did not release in China yet. I'll check out. I'll tell you when China releases.
Well, China's a big market, much like the United States, in terms of population and the amount of seeing movies. I just, with everything coming up and the drop off that always happens with movies like this, the 6 to 7 mark seems. I don't know. You might be right. I'm just personally like a 5.5. Maybe 6, but I'm on the lower side of that scale rather than the upper.
March 24th.
Okay. So after everyone who wants to see it has already bootlegged it.
How droll.
All right. Yeah, I think that's all we've got for money. But yeah, next week. All hail Beauty and the Beast and the other thing I wanted to mention that you touched on. They had to make those changes with Cinderella because the movie you can't translate that 1-to-1. It was back in the day when there were a lot of superficial songs and a lot of cartoon mice antics. That was kind of what Disney was sold on. Beauty and the Beast was actually a coherent, deep, for considering, comprehensively well-written film. I mean, it was nominated for Best Picture that year and might have won if not for, Silence of the Lambs.
Could you imagine if it had over Silence of the Lambs?
You know what? No, I can't.
Oh, wait, hang on. We have breaking news here. Beauty and the Beast sets new record for advance ticket sales. It's fucking over. Just end the year already. We're done. Disney wins.
Yeah. Guys.
Come on. Fucking Beauty and the Beast, Guardians, Star Wars. Get the fuck out of here. Oh, and by the way, I'm sure Thor is going to do well, too, because it's Thor and the Hulk.
I'm not sure. A lot of the set photos they've released for Thor have been troubling.
For you, but people will go see it because they want to go see Thor and the Hulk. Independently, I don't know if they do as well. I think together, people are like, "Woo, it's a crossover."
I don't know. Again, I'm not completely sold on that one, and they're not doing a good job of selling me. Phrase it like that. I mean, I'm going to see it anyway because we're reviewing it.
Advanced ticket sales for Disney's movie, which hits theaters Friday, are the biggest of any family film in Fandango's 17-year history. It's over. Disney won 2 years in a row. Oh my God, just stop it. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, the undisputed king of cinema, Mickey Mouse.
And can someone kill Josh Gad?
Sorry.
No, can someone kill Josh Gad? He's so terrible.
Where did that come from? You know what? Don't answer. Just the button.
He's LeFou.
I get it. Why are we killing him? What does that have to do with anything?
All right, so let me rephrase. His career, because I don't for the life of me understand why he exists in the space that he does. And I can't stand him on film. Absolutely cannot stand him. But I will yell about Josh Gad next week, and I probably will. All right. Mark, what time is it?
Oh, damn it.
I'll push the button to set me up.
Oh. It's time to see what the critics thought?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
All right, before we actually get into this, let me go back and readdress the seriously, I've now looked up fucking Kong Skull Island Hail to the King so many times that if I put KO in there, that's what comes up in my Google search. Let me address the Brie Larson thing because I think it's patently unfair. So, but I got to bring up the wiki on this again, which I closed. I don't think I needed it anymore. All right. So, in short, there's a whole like subset of criticism about this movie just focused on her. And it goes like this. Several critics have commented on Larson's role in the movie, having recently won an Oscar for Room, which, as an aside, she was one of the people suggested that she would be like the next Meryl Streep opposite the broad from La La Land and Spider-Man movies. Thank you. Just to give you sort of an idea of how she's regarded by two movie critics on the podcast from Screen Junkies, Movie Fights. It was Movie Mansk and some other dude who likes Star Wars.
Can I yell about this after you're done?
No, hang on. Yes, but hang on. So anyway, my point is they were having an argument over who's going to be the next Meryl Streep. Emma Stone, and the other guy suggested Brie Larson. So that's sort of the height at which she is held in some people's eyes. However, several critics have commented on Larson's role in the movie, having recently won an Oscar for Room. A starring role in a popcorn movie on the heels of a passion project can open up an actor to ridicule. Quote, still, there's no doubt, this is coming from, where is this coming from? Anne Hornaday. Hollywood ageism punishes actresses, but the art house offers some hope. March 13th, 2017 is where this quote comes from. Still, there's no doubt that women are far more affected by the movie industry's obsession with sex appeal and physical beauty, resulting in a giant absence in female roles once actresses reach their 50s and 60s. And the slide can state disconcertingly early. Consider, if you will, Brie Larson, who co-stars in Kong Skull Island and serves as a cautionary poster girl for aspiring actresses everywhere. One year, you're winning an Oscar for a sensitive, skillfully layered performance in an emotionally demanding drama. The next, you're widening your eyes and gasping your way through a great big monkey movie. That's wildly insulting on many levels to the actress, to the film, and wholly inaccurate. I mean, she's sitting here basically saying that, in one movie she gives this really riveting performance, but in the next movie her performance is bullshit, which it isn't. And it's like, no. You're not capturing the essence of her performance. You're the one being insulting and slighting her, lady. But I also don't find that to be an accurate statement. Because I guess if you're limiting your scope to, I don't know, billion-dollar blockbuster movies, maybe there aren't a lot of roles available. But, I mean, I'm looking at, like, the Guardians movies, and there's 2 or 3 different female leads in that movie who have big parts. Big, juicy, kick-ass parts. Not to mention the slew, the ridiculous wave of powerful women roles throughout television. Some of the best television going right now has strong, prominent female roles. So I don't know what this person's talking about. Am I misunderstanding something, or am I misrepresenting this?
No. You're dealing with an idiot. First of all, let me start with Meryl Streep's severely overrated. No.
Take that,
hang on.
Movie Fights.
No. Hand to God. I have seen one Meryl Streep performance, and I'm not sure seen is the right word. Because she does the voice acting for Reverend Lovejoy's wayward daughter in The Simpsons. That is literally the only thing featuring Meryl Streep I have ever seen. I mean, here's my point. For the most, prolific and talented actress going today, if that's the titles you want to use, and I'm not alone in that reality. As far as, Meryl Streep, people say she's good. Well, what's she been in? I don't know. Nothing I've seen. I mean, come on. I'm aware of her talent. I mean, this many people would not consistently say this about her if it were an outright lie.
She has her own Wikipedia page. Hang on. In fairness to this woman, she has her own Wikipedia page for just her own list of awards and nominations. Of which, hang on, let's not slight the woman, of which she has won 161 awards. Now, I don't watch any of this shit, and I don't think it's important. But as my father once told me, you can't, it's not up to you to decide what's important or what's not important. It exists. It is recognized as important, and let's not take that away from the woman. She's clearly a talented actress.
Sure.
Okay.
No, she's a talented actress whose talent exists more through word of mouth than through demonstrated. Like, you are more likely. Let me put it this way: you are more likely to.
Wait a minute. Hang on. The last thing I saw her in was actually Julie and Julia, and I liked her in that. But she was good. She plays Julia.
Here's my point. You are more likely to know someone who has seen her in a movie than you are to have actually seen it yourself.
That's fair, but I also have a penis. Okay, I'm not going to watch a lot of her movies. They're really not in my wheelhouse.
Anyway, my point is, no, that is a deeply insulting position to take about this role. Sure, it's kind of a nothing role. And if you want to yell at, why isn't the woman given a juicier role? Well, there's a grand total of one guy with an interesting role in this movie. It's John C. Reilly. All right? Everyone else is very stock. They're very good in that. Again, they accept it. They play with it. They play into it. They do a good job with it. I'm not yelling about where's the creativity in this instance. They're stock, fair play. They did it well. No criticism. But that's ridiculous. I mean, weren't people saying the same thing about Natalie Portman? Because she won the Oscar for Black Swan and then was like in Thor the next year. Something like that?
Yeah. Right. It's almost as if like the critics want them to play the character from those movies in the next popcorn movie they're in.
Which is stupid. It doesn't fit. If you're an actor, you adjust to what you are given. You have range, the ability to do more than one thing. No, she's not going to bring the nuance of a woman who was locked in a closet and raped by her husband for 8 years into a photojournalist in Kong. Well, I mean, if she had, it wouldn't fit, and we'd be criticizing her for being one note.
Also overacting. I mean, we just went through a whole thing about how they used restraint in keeping these actors from chewing up the scenery, which was definitely a threat. And then you would have this woman, overplaying her role. By the way, she's not the actress I was thinking of, because I always she was in Sophie's Choice, and that's certainly in my head when I think of not, a great character, not the one you want in Kong Skull Island, though. But the one that I always go to, my go-to in terms of dramatic acting is Yentl, and that's Barbra Streisand now that I'm thinking about it. Let me check me if I'm right about that.
No, look, the two big movies that Meryl Streep got a bunch of attention for, and deservedly so, were Sophie's Choice and Kramer versus Kramer.
Right. Yep. Yentl. There it is. Barbra Streisand. Good old Babs.
And then I think a lot of people thought, yay, Devil Wears Prada, which was a terrible movie. So bad I haven't even seen it.
Pretty sure I was on a date when I saw that, though.
That would be the only acceptable reason. I'd have to take your man card if you...
No, I wasn't going to see the. I didn't even know what the hell the Devil Wears Prada was unless I was with a broad. Yes, Barbra Streisand plays Yentl Mendel.
Sexism. You've got it. You do realize how much we're going to get blasted for this whole last 20 minutes, right?
Well, the one guy was making really good points, and then he threw the word broad out there. Let's burn his house down. Believe me.
Well, and then there's the other guy who dares like take a different perspective on Meryl Streep's career.
Yeah, suddenly there's many people with weak hearts just falling down. No one who would be insulted by what we're saying is listening to this podcast. Trust me.
I sure hope so.
And besides, at this point, if people aren't used to me and my way I do things and the things that I say, they're certainly going to get a lot of that when we talk about the Iron Fist, the Living Weapon comic book, Monday, right here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. It's on YouTube right now if you're dying to hear me say a bunch of shit. But if you can wait for the cut up version, that's going to appear Monday on the network. We handed this book its ass, but I was also in rare form last night. I was I was Showtime at the Apollo featuring Mark Radulich. Did a lot of hashtag Black folks bits. Anyway, let's move on with this.
The point there being, the woman chose a role. Nobody put a gun to her head and said, okay, you were a talented actress, you won an Oscar, you gave this deep, nuanced performance. Well, we can't have that in Hollywood. We're all going to smoke cigars, wear fedoras and spats. Somebody's going to put a revolver to your head with the contract for Kong, Skull Island in front of you, and assure you that by the end of the meeting, either your signature or your brains will be on the contract. I mean, come on.
Can I say something to you? And I'm gonna, and I know I do a lot of jokes about, hashtag she married me anyway. But I want to give my wife a rare credit publicly. Privately, I tell her she's wonderful all the time. I'm really not a dick, people. No, I am a dick, but I'm really not a horrible husband, people. My wife tells me so. But one of the things that my wife and I were talking about yesterday, and I realize this is why our marriage works well, is that regardless of maybe personal preference tastes and maybe sometimes a different way we view the world, one of the things that we agree about is that and this relates to what we're talking about in terms of gender in Hollywood. So people don't if we tell another fucking, I'm going to dress my kids in gimmick story. No. I'm on topic. I don't believe women are special just by virtue of being women. I think there are special women. I think there are special men. I think there are great people on this planet who are talented and wonderful and should be elevated in society because of the merit that they bring, because of the talent that they bring, because of any number of elements. And I don't think I'm one of those people, by the way. I'm just average Joe. But there's a belief among, I think, the average woman that their gender makes them special in some way, and they should somehow be elevated just by virtue of their gender, nothing more. And that plays out in concepts of romance. I don't want to dig too deep into this and get way esoteric, but know that I said that to my wife, and she was like, yeah, I agree. I think women have a completely self-absorbed, overinflated perception of what being a female is. And these are her words now. You're not special. You're just as good as men. And then you're stratified into there's shitty, there's okay, there's good, and there's awesome women. Same thing for men. And that's how we should be grouped. Not by, because you're a girl, you deserve to be treated differently even in the same circumstances. Now, there are biological differences, and that's why I don't want to go crazy with this subject. The point of it is you'll get this belief among women that, in terms of, like I said, romance and dating and stuff like that, that women should be treated a certain way. And I'm not saying they should be treated disrespectfully, but you're not princesses. I know that's the myth. I know that's what you're taught. But the Disney princess motif, and I'm not the only one that's ever said this, by the way. Women have also studied this and said this, that probably the most damaging psychological archetype is convincing young girls that they should be treated like a Disney princess. And it's asinine, and it's damaging. Now, how this relates to jump in if you think I'm, like, way overboard, by the way, because I want to connect this to Brie Larson, but if you're like Radulich, you're off the deep end. Speak up now or forever hold your peace.
No, keep going.
Okay. I was like, I thought you hung up or something, or I'm on mute. Related to Brie Larson, you know, there's a lot of actors. Let's take Robert De Niro, who have taken gritty, awesome, amazing. I mean, no one would say that Robert De Niro is a bad actor. And he's in shit these days. Shit he decided to take. Okay? He walked in and was like, I'll take that dumb movie, the Dirty Grandpa movie, sure. Ugh. I just watched him do a bit of an opening for a Jim Norton stand-up on Netflix that just dropped today, where he's spanking him. It was funny, but I mean, like, this guy went from Taxi Driver to this with a lot in between. So it is, you know, actors act. They take roles. Sometimes you're going to get Taxi Driver. Sometimes you're going to get Casino. Other times you're getting Dirty Grandpa. Why should he be any different than Brie Larson? Why should Brie Larson be any different than him? And who the fuck is this person, and whoever the fuck her name is, to tell Brie Larson she's a shit actress because she took a monkey movie, quote unquote? So fuck you, lady.
I mean, look, in that same vein, Gary Oldman, a man perpetually overlooked for Oscars despite his immense talent, one of the best character actors, one of the best, you know, one of the most diverse actors going today, if not ever, was quite literally in a monkey movie a few years ago. He was in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Brought the best moment in that whole movie to screen, too, because he's Gary fucking Oldman. But no, look, if she made she chose to do this movie, who cares? Like, the only thing incumbent upon her as an actor is to know your lines, show up on time, and hit your marks. I mean, that's it.
I said this about Halle Berry and Catwoman. You can't blame her for the performance in that. You can't blame her for the performance in that movie. She did what she was asked to do, and she did it well. It isn't like
No, she did not.
They gave her maybe a better example I should use.
There's almost any example that would better make your point than, hey, right. Halle Berry won an Oscar, but she also did Catwoman. Well,
my point being, if a director says, here's what I need you to do, and you do it competently, that shouldn't garner criticism in terms of your acting craft, which is, I feel like, is what this woman is saying about Brie Larson. That's not fair, and it's not professional for her to have said so.
Look, if you want to criticize elements of her performance, fair. That's there to be criticized. Criticizing her choices in the sense that, well, how dare you take this role? You're supposed to be... I mean, the implication here is that because you are a talented actress, you are somehow beholden to society to only do the things where you will actor the hardest. Like, no, that's stupid. This is a job. You take jobs sometimes that are stupid because they're fun.
And not something we ask men to do. Again, there aren't articles written about, it's getting harder for men to get parts out there because sometimes you get the good parts and sometimes you get the shit parts. Why? Why is she different? Because she has a vagina? You sexist? All right.
It's only sexist if a man says it, remember? Like, it's only racist if a white guy says it. There's no such thing as a racist if he's not white. Argument that has actually been presented to me, by the way.
By the way, have you heard Finn Jones's excuse that the reason why people are attacking his characterization of Iron Fist is because Iron Fist is a white billionaire, Trump's a white billionaire, and that's making people sour on white billionaires?
Well, he's not wrong. Look, Mark, we talked about this a few months ago. A bunch of critics actually used Trump as an adjective. It's a Trumpy movie.
True.
What have we come to
here? Yes, good old Ray Kroc.
And bear in mind, I also think he gets a lot of criticism for that role because people are too stupid to use Google.
Well, let me say this, and then let's get to the
agents. Danny Rand has always been a white guy, like always.
Yeah, you know what though? You know the counter argument to that. Well, Johnny Storm has also always been white, yet they casted Michael B. Jordan in Fan Four Stick.
Yeah, and that movie sucked ass.
See, that's a cheap argument. That's not the point, is it? No. But I don't want to get into a whole casting discussion. My only point with bringing that up is we are now referring to Marvel's Netflix's Iron Fist as Marvel Netflix's white privilege. That's its name. That's how it will be known.
If you insist on doing that, our review is going to be really short.
Well, what did you think of Iron Fist? I don't know what you're talking about. I watched a show called White Privilege. All right. That's funny, and you know it. All right.
If it was funny, I'd be laughing.
You're laughing on the inside.
I'm crying on the inside.
Roxana Haddadi of Chesapeake Family Magazine. Underneath all the giant monster blood, all right, and guts, there's little substance in Kong Skull Island. Wait, hang on. The slimy viscera, despite the filmmaker's best intentions, stands alone and without impact. I'm not sure she actually saw the movie.
What the? Wait a minute. You mean the one scene where Kong has to recover from wounds, and then the one scene at the end where he grabs the thing's tongue and yanks it out because it has swallowed half of his fist? That is fundamentally inaccurate. Okay, if you want to criticize that maybe in a lot of cases, again, it's a bit of a stock movie and there's a lack of emotional depth through a fair amount, okay. For your counterpoint to be, well, there's all this blood and violence and gore and viscera, and that's the movie. No, there isn't. There is pointedly not. You clearly did not see the same movie I did. I mean, did you get a pre-screening, a very early pre-screening in this instance of the next Saw movie, and go, oh, well, okay, this will work? No. You have taken, again, when I say you're just wrong, when I say people are just wrong as far as their criticism goes, here's an instance. There's too much blood and guts in Kong Skull Island. You're the type of person who's going to whine when Gaston falls off a building at the end of Beauty and the Beast. If that's your perspective. If that is your baseline and you are consistent with it, then the inevitable death of Luke Evans, I think, as Gaston in Beauty and the Beast is going to send you. You're going to become apoplectic. I mean, come on.
Rashid Irani of the Hindustan Times. Unfortunately, director Jordan Vogt-Roberts, making the leap to a big-budget blockbuster after his indie debut, The Kings of Summer, can't match the white-knuckle excitement of the iconic black and white original. Ugh.
All right, hang on. Okay, hang on. Let's be very, very clear about a couple of things. Kong's reveal in the original 1920s movie is still one of the iconic moments in cinema history. It will never be topped. Just fundamentally will never be topped. That being said, the original has a fair amount of downtime. The notion that it's all white-knuckle excitement, I would question when the last time this gentleman saw that movie was. There are comparisons to be made here between the two films. That's fair if you wish to do so. I wouldn't, but because they're different movies, but if you wish to compare them, fine. But one that is specifically designed as an action thriller versus a 1920s claymation movie, there's only degrees to which this comparison is even fair. I mean, just you should be comparing it to the most recent iteration of the story, and this is much better than Peter Jackson's King Kong, which, as I've said before, I actually enjoyed.
Yeah, I wish we had done the on trial for that this week, but I wasn't the one picking. Lewis, and I just can't pick the entire schedule. It's not fair to Sean. Luis Fernando Galvan and Filme. And this review is full, and this review is actually in Spanish. Kong Skull Island isn't scary or frightening. Neither excites nor surprises. It just entertains. Will that be enough?
I don't know. I mean, there's a perfectly valid argument that entertaining is the sole purpose of film, or at least the first purpose. It's not scary, okay? It's not supposed to be. It's not exciting.
I need to read you this next one.
No, hang on. It's not exciting. Well, that's actually pure opinion. I mean, Mark was clearly excited by elements of the movie.
Yeah, I know. Apparently my opinion doesn't count. I got to read this to you because this is one of those get 'em Winfrees, okay?
Yay.
Clarice Loufray of Independent UK. It's a film that somehow takes the fun out of watching a giant monkey slam dunk a helicopter into the ground. Get her, Winfree.
Okay, first of all, he's an ape. Do you people not understand the basic biological difference between a monkey and an ape? Like, how does that escape you, bunch of morons? No, it's a monkey. No, it's an ape. There's a difference. There's a really obvious difference. But you know what? I'm not going to tell you because I want you to actually exercise your brain just a bit and discover it for yourself. As for taking the fun out of it, and I've said this before, and I have to bring it up again, fun is subjective. I had more fun at Godzilla than I did at this. Doesn't mean this is better, that Godzilla was better than this. In fact, again, this is a slightly better made movie, all things considered. I mean, how exactly would you prefer a movie about a giant ape slam dunking helicopters into the ground be presented? I mean, do you actually want the cartoon? Do you want him to have purple fur and go around saying grape ape? Because I remember that abysmal awesome Hanna-Barbera cartoon. Do you want everyone to get up after having nice little craters made of their own silhouettes and hold up a sign saying ow? I mean, what is your expectation? What do you constitute fun as being when watching a giant gorilla destroy things? Like, it's not overly gory. It's not bloody. The scenes are all readable. You are aware of who the characters are and care just a little bit. Things get destroyed. Like, what are we missing here? Like, I mean, seriously, I feel like the only, you want Tom and Jerry, and that's not what this is.
No, but I'm really enjoying your pitch for a live-action Grape Ape movie.
No, never.
How about the Hanna-Barbera MonsterVerse and have Grape Ape versus Magilla Gorilla?
No. Because then you'd have to throw in that stupid Loch Ness Monster knockoff. And Hanna-Barbera cartoons from that era were dog excrement. And nobody wants to admit it because they all have these fond memories of sitting in front of the TV watching this crap. Can we do the Herculoids versus Thundera? That'd be awesome.
We'll
Stop.
have the Herculoids. We'll have Thundera. We'll have Magilla Gorilla, and we'll have Grape Ape. It'll be fantastic.
This is the worst thing you've ever suggested.
To the intern listening to this podcast, you know what to do. I have sat here and listened to you suggest some things that made me want to put my head through a wall. This is the worst. I want Herculoids. I want Thundera.
Well, I'm sure your wife could find a box set on eBay. Do not corrupt the next generation of humanity with that crap.
Herculoids. I love it. There was I think that was the one that had the something along the lines of a triceratops shooting fucking snowballs out of its horn.
Again, do not do this.
All right, let's move on. Matthew Lacona, top critic, San Diego Reader. This one fascinates me. This guy gave this a 1 out of 5, by the way. It's fun to watch the monsters in action, but on the human side, the film is clumsily written, overcast, and underacted, with only frustrated soldier Samuel L. Jackson striking the right tone of crazy and amid the chaos.
Okay, and? I mean, what do you want? Again, look, a couple of the soldiers do a perfectly serviceable job. The interactions between the again, slightly stock character, but the sergeant who's just a little bit off, and the black guy who just wants to get home to his mama, and the fried alligator, or whatever it was. Again, they had some fun interactions. They were perfectly fine. Samuel L. Jackson does a great job of not chewing scenery and just having fun and being believable. And again, nobody does such a terrible job that you want to throw things. Again, are they stock? Sure. Are they good stock? Absolutely. Stop complaining.
All right. Brian Formo of Collider. Kong Skull Island feels like a movie that was made in a focus group, chemist lab, and never solidifies an identity. Aw, he didn't like
That's
the Vietnam
not. No. We talked about movies that were focus grouped to death. We have had that discussion. If you listen to some of the old shows, Mark and I have actually I have levied that exact complaint at different movies, like Suicide Squad. Well, we got to make the Joker scary, but we can't do Heath Ledger. All right, all you soccer moms, what are you afraid of? Face tattoos. All right, the Joker now has face tattoos and a grill, and looks like a cholo.
I'm also afraid of the insane clown posse that my son listens to. Got it.
Again, this was not a focus grouped movie. This was a movie that was made by people who completely understand the property that they're in. Again, whoever is godfathering this this monsters verse is doing a great job, because you have a Godzilla movie that was great. You have a great Kong movie. I'm legitimately excited about these properties going forward because they might not suck. This was not a focus grouped movie by any stretch of the imagination, with the possible exception of, well, what did you listen to in 1974? And they just got all the stock answers from every movie set in the 70s ever.
All right, I need to really quick change something. It's Thundar the Barbarian. I want to see Thundar the Barbarian versus the Herculoids.
Stop.
I just needed to correct the record. I got the name wrong.
I was so much happier when it was wrong, because then the odds of someone actually hearing you and following through were lower.
Yeah, Thundera is actually the planet that the Thundercats are from.
Anyway, I think I yelled about that. I'm like, no, guy. Look, the monsters are the primary selling point. The fact that the humans do a good job is glorious, glorious gravy. This was not a focus grouped movie. There's a lot here that plays against what you would expect from a focus group, actually.
You need to tell me when you're done, because right now I'm looking at pictures of Herculoids and Thundar the Barbarian.
I'm done. Next.
He said in defeat. Okay. Will Leitch of the New Republic, top critic. It's no surprise that Kong Skull Island has such dull, rote human characters, with one notable, delightful exception. But it is a shock that the ape himself is so distant and sullen. All right.
No. There's no. Like, no. Wait a minute. Again, stock, fair complaint. Sullen? This is not a sullen movie.
He's saying the ape is sullen, and I don't believe that's true either.
No, the monkey doesn't sit around brooding. The monkey is not Batfleck, all right? Who works out his anger by throwing a tire around. Okay, it's a legitimate exercise. I understand. I'm being quasi-facetious here. Again, the ape is not Batman in the sense that, boy, I'm going to sit on this rooftop and I'm going to brood. And I don't have time to save the world because it cuts into my brooding. And it's a good thing I'm going to turn into a silverback because I only work in black or very dark gray. So much hate. No. Kong is not sullen. All right? He spends most of the movie stomping things' heads in. He's not sullen. He's angry and defending himself. Sullen is like one of the least accurate descriptors you could get.
Well, hang on. In defense of him being sullen, his entire family was slaughtered. And then a bunch of humans show up and start dropping bombs on his head. I would be a little depressed
if there were a
if my family
scene where
was
he
murdered.
just sits on his rock for, 3 minutes and contemplates the sunset, then maybe we could reach sullen. I'm not saying it would be an inaccurate characterization if they had gone that way. I'm saying they didn't even go that way in the movie. I mean, Kong could be sullen, sure. Plenty of reason to be. Again, family murdered by the things that he now fights to overcome. See Batman reference once again. No. Just, again, a lot of no there. All right, next.
All right, hang on. My computer's frozen. Googly. God damn it. Cancel. There we go. Chris Climate, top critic of NPR.
Oh, NPR. This ought to be good.
Every time the movie threatens to get interesting, one of its hordes of Earthsat non-animated characters shows up and starts talking again.
No. I understand elements of his point. I do. Hang on. And I understand maybe even being a little bit gun-shy after all the, here they're going to fight, no they're not, from Godzilla. I understand. And I understand that, again, the monster is the primary attraction. But you can't have a 90-minute movie of King Kong fighting the Skullcrawlers. It doesn't actually work as a film. And there's no reason, there's no reason to do that. You do need people. You do need emotional touchstones for the audience. Those are things that are required, especially if you're going to spend $180 million making the darn thing. And the characters, again, stock, yes. Uninteresting, not quite so much. There's an important distinction that has to be made between fits within a trope that I've seen a million times and badly fits within a trope I've seen a million times. There's no value to being in trope or out of trope. It's the execution. These were executed very, very well. So I don't think it's a valid complaint. Any others?
Hang on. Yep. I'm going to read a couple of these in a row. Chris Honeysett of the Daily Mirror UK. Never has any version of Kong lacked such personality. Kirk Baird of the Toledo Blade. It may be beauty who killed the beast in the original King Kong, but in Kong Skull Island, it's the lackluster screenplay that takes on this not-so-grape ape. You got paid for that line. This asshole, Chris Stuckman of ChrisStuckman.com. Kong Skull Island features enough frenetic monster action to satisfy some, but the whole affair can't escape a vapidly hollow feeling after the credits roll. Speak for yourself. Daniel Green of Cineview. There's little to Kong Skull Island that isn't either hugely unnecessary or just plainly illogical. Okay.
No, wait. Why would it be? No. I mean, sure. We discovered an island. We should send people to survey it. Oh, that doesn't make sense. We got military assets in the area, and we're kind of, in the end of a war. They should have a military escort. No. Can't have the military involved in this. That doesn't make sense. Guy at the end of the war sees a significant chunk of the men under his command violently murdered by a giant ape. He swears and subsequently swears revenge. No human being would ever swear revenge on something. Lest I point you to actual Moby Dick, you moron. Where do you go? No! Again, does this have the least amount of personality from actual Kong as far as other movies go? I'd have to rewatch every Kong movie to make that particular claim valid or invalid. We spend less time with Kong in this one than we have in previous movies, so I can see where that might be a valid note. I don't think it's a valid criticism, because the structure of this movie is less about Kong as a character and more about what he means to the world. Consequently, yeah, we get less time with him just kind of hanging out with the hot chick. And by the way, this guy clearly isn't the one complaining that Brie Larson took a role that didn't matter because... I mean, he did just also denigrate Naomi Watts and Fay Wray and everyone else just played the woman opposite Kong, but hey.
All right. We have just about run out of recording time, so I'm going to read one more here. I always like to end with a top critic. Let me pick a good one here.
Speaking of, to that guy who was complaining, you must be a very talented critic to, work for your own website.
Okay. Well, this isn't a top critic, but I always enjoy reading Kurt Loder just being a douchebag. I don't know if you know who Kurt Loder is, but he used to do the MTV News. Now he's on Reason Online. And the only thing we pulled out of his was, good grief, Kong again.
What?
All right,
That's
J.R.
not a
Jones
valid... Wait,
J.R.
this
Jones,
jackass
the Chicago
gets paid
Reader.
for this?
Yeah. For no reason I can fathom, except perhaps the classic rock tunes desired for the soundtrack, the story takes place in 1973, when the Vietnam War is winding down and President Nixon is being driven from office. For no reason he can fathom.
Wow, other than maybe they wanted to set it there? Hey, I'm a writer.
We don't get paid.
The previous installment into this... I wonder why they set Captain America during World War II. I mean, come on! And look, as for Kong again, don't get me wrong. I understand that Kong has had some rough movies. But the last movie featuring Kong was aforementioned Peter Jackson movie, which was, again, I think 7 or 8 years ago. I really have to double check. Kong does not have a high volume of cinema to his name. Again, you're more valid saying, geez, another Godzilla movie, because there's been a lot of Godzilla movies. Some of them good, some of them not. That's not a valid complaint about Kong. Almost at all. You have a more valid complaint with great, another Batman movie. Seriously, there's a much better complaint with, boy, I'm just sick of seeing Batman in terms of volume of films presented over the course of your life. Then, geez, I'm so sick of
where I am
Kong.
with it. That's about where I am with Batman. All right, I think that just about wraps it up. Once again, I love doing this segment, believe it or not. I know I was a little distracted because now I'm obsessed with pitching this Herculoids versus Thundar the Barbarian movie, and I've tagged you in the post. Good, so congrats on that.
I will not be viewing that.
I've entirely misrepresented your opinion on the matter, by the way, in the post. I just want you to know that.
Sounds about right.
I am abjectly lying about your opinion, as a matter of fact, as I should be.
Sounds about normal.
So
isn't that just how this works at times? We both lie about what the other one feels.
So I am here. I am committed to this. I am interested in the topic, but I was also slightly distracted by the Herculoids versus Thundar the Barbarian, and I needed to get that done. I needed to get it off my plate. But I do enjoy this last bit of the podcast because I just marvel at the fact that these are all supposed to be professional reviewers, and I don't read them all. Unless there's only a short list. But Jesus, Mary and Joseph, I don't understand.
If you had a job where performance mattered, you'd all be fired.
And how you're all so bad at it? You know, I guess they just have editors who don't give a shit, and they kind of have free reign. And you know, we
work
actually
through
care.
such vaunted websites as WillyWaffles.com.
I didn't check out Willy Waffles' review of this thing.
Don't.
Maybe we should have.
Now,
Hang on.
We're transitioning.
Willy
I'm just
Waffles.
insulting the man in passing.
WillyWaffles.com. Here we go.
Ugh. Don't give him the hit.
I can't even find this dude's website.
Good.
I'm doing
And the
something
world
wrong
is a
here.
slightly
there we
better
go.
place.
There we go. Waffle movies. There we go.
Oh.
Kong Skull Island. Kong Skull Island is short on details and depth.
Really? Really? Short on detail. No, they didn't talk about Monarch or the Hollow Earth theory or set up God's... No, they didn't actually set up the rest of the MonsterVerse through dialogue and subtext and, you know, set pieces and depth. No, John C. Reilly finally returning home is clearly not something that will play with you emotionally at all, you golem.
Oh,
I mean, look,
Waffles,
I'm not saying
terrible.
I'm not saying you have to break down into sobs when he reunites with his long-lost family after 28 years of being on Skull Island. But if you can't understand why other people do or might, then you clearly are missing something within the functionality of your brain. And I would advise you to stop eating paint chips.
His excerpt from this movie was Kong Skull Island is an action movie trying to be a little more sarcastic than that, but they should stick to the action.
This is not a sarcastic movie. They're just fundamentally. Like, it's trying to be sarcastic. No, it really isn't. This is not the work of Simon Pegg or Nick Frost or Edgar Wright.
Ooh.
No.
He has an advertisement here for Boss Baby. I can't wait to see what he thinks of that.
$20 says he loves it as a brilliant satire on our current political climate.
All right.
Because he's a freaking moron.
Right. It's Boss Baby, the Trumpiest movie of 2017 thus far.
Please,
Let's move
does he
forward
actually
into
say that? Wait. Please tell me he
No,
actually
no.
says that.
No, I made that up.
Someone will say that. Okay, hang on.
Yet.
Let me be very clear. If any of you know someone who reviews movies, either professionally or on the amateur level, because technically Mark and I are amateurs. We don't actually get paid for this. If they actually refer to Trump as an adjective or a descriptor or anything other than actually referring to the president or something that supersedes something else, again, Trump card being an obvious example. If they actually say it's a Trumpy movie, I want you to go to your local grocery store. If you have a good one, in the back there will be a butcher section that will sell you salmon. It will be gutted, but it will be intact. Purchase one. Grab it by the tail, find your friend, and beat them about the face, head, and shoulders with this mostly intact salmon. Then push them into a ravine where bears live, because now they will smell like salmon. But no, seriously, find a dead fish and smack them with it, because you can't possibly be that big a detriment to society.
Okay. Good stuff. I seriously hope that when somebody reviews, I hope it's not just one person. I hope we're not reviewing Boss Baby, but I know my son and my wife are going to go see it because he wants to, but my daughter doesn't. So just my wife and my son are going to go, and I'm going to go take her to go see Power Rangers that day since she's not going to be able to see it when it opens. It'll be the week later. But I seriously hope that somebody, when Boss Baby does come out, we just get a slew of Rotten Tomato reviews that call it the Trumpiest movie of 2017 because I'll just we'll just do a special Damn You Hollywood of only negative Trump Boss Baby reviews. It doesn't matter how good or bad the movie is. I will laugh my ass off at the amount of people calling it Trumpy.
Again, there's a bunch of morons out there who will take this as a stinging satire of our current political climate, even though this freaking movie was made before the election.
All right. Speaking of Trumpy
it's clearly a commentary on Trump's presidency. No, it's really not.
Tomorrow night on the Metal Hammer of Doom, we're reviewing Darkest Hour, Godless Prophets in the Migrant Flora. That's going to be at 10:30. On trial this week is Sean's pick. It's Zach and Mary Make a Porno. He'll be prosecuting. I'll be defending.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know. We could have done Peter Jackson's King Kong or the 1976 King Kong, but that's just what Sean wanted to do, and I didn't want to direct him and be a dictator. The next.
But you're prosecuting. I'm just sorry anyone ever watches that movie, or pretty much anything by. Pretty much anything by Kevin Smith, but my personal bias is clearly at play there.
I think it's one of his favorite movies or something like that. I mean, I don't want to speak for him, but I thought he was telling me part of the reason why he picked it was it's one of the ones he really enjoys. I thought it was utterly forgettable. I mean, I didn't hate it or anything. I just was like, all right, well, another Kevin Smith jam, and instantly left my brain. And in any case, I'll be defending because I prosecuted the one before that, which was Wolverine. So he's prosecuting, I'm defending. That's this Thursday at 9 o'clock. For the next 2 weeks on source material, we'll be looking at Rage and Redemption, Iron Fist, the Living Weapon, by, as we called him, Ham Sandwich Anders. We tore the shit out of this book. I fucking hated it. Our next Damn You Hollywood is Beauty and the Beast. No need to say anything more than that. Just Beauty and the Beast. Hail to the king. Metal Hammer of Doom will be reviewing Obituary, and then we're back. Robert and I, you get a double dose of Robert and I that week, as we'll both be reviewing Marvel and Netflix's White Privilege. And then our final week of March, I'm not letting that joke die, by the way.
You don't have to let it die. You just have to be aware that could very well come between me and it when I shoot it in the head.
Our last Damn You Hollywood of the month will be Power Rangers, which looks dope. The
fact that you have to use dope as a descriptor is just so sad.
Yeah. Looks dope, yo. Metal Hammer of Doom will finally be getting the Steel Panther, as it will have come out on the 24th of March and not the 24th of February, as I was led to believe. And just now added to the schedule, not just now, but recently added to the schedule, March 30th, we are going to, the Legion finale will have been the night before. We're going to take a day to process it, and we're actually going to do an entire wrap-up of season 1 of Legion, all 8 or so episodes on a TV party tonight. It's going to be myself, Josh Calandros, Ronnie Adams. Anyone that's watched the show and wants to talk about it, more than welcome on more of a panel discussion. But it's rare that I'll do a TV party for a show that I watched episodically as it aired. I'd rather just marathon the thing and sort of digest it all at once. But we've been talking about it as it's been going online. So I figured, stop being a Nazi, stop being a control freak Radulich. People want to talk about it. Let's do a show on it, and let's just talk about the whole season. It's fine. Well, so that's all the rest of our shows for March. We'll have some Screaming Boy in the mix. We'll have some stuff from Sean Garmer from WrestlingToTheMax.net, as we are sharing content with them. Also look for FPG's The Press Start podcast with Stuart Lang. We're sharing content with them as well. We're syndicating that show. So lots of exciting things happening here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. If you have not had an opportunity to we are on iTunes. We're on Stitcher. We're on any podcasting app where you can listen to podcasts. So why not subscribe to us? Get it right there on your phone. You don't have to go to the Blog Talk Radio page anymore. Okay? It's all good in the hood. Just get it right there on your phone through iTunes or any of your favorite podcast apps. We are on them all. Hit that subscribe button. You want to leave a comment. You want to say, for the love of Christ, stop talking about your children. I welcome that sort of thing. You can also hit me up on Twitter at Mark Radulich. And lastly, again, another place for interaction, for opinions, insults, whatever you like, is the Radulich and Broadcasting Facebook page. We put all of our shows up there. That's where we do a lot of our promoting. But it's also there for people to make, and we do listen. I've definitely had some suggestions from people who are listening to the shows. You know, something that you want to hear, a TV party, a Metal Hammer of Doom, a movie you want us to review that's not already on the schedule. You know, hit us up there. If you got some criticisms of the show, listen, half the criticisms I got on these shows used to be, hey, your sound sucks, fix your mic. And I did. So I listened, folks, and I got that one from Twitter. So again, Twitter at Mark Radulich, Radulich and Broadcasting Facebook page, iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, the whole 9 yards. Give us a subscribe, give us a listen, give us a comment, give us a dozen roses. Robert?
Yeah, I got please stop talking over each other recently.
Did you really?
Yeah. I have no, to be fair, I'm not sure what show that pertains to because I do 2 or 3 that could legitimately apply to, either this one or the Ground and Pound show where Jeff and I have been heated a time or two, and again, you and I will frequently have overlapping, like you'll be closing a sentence as I'm starting one type thing.
Right. I try not to talk over you. I try to give you your space. I just, it's a little hard because there are times where I just don't know when you're going to stop talking, and I don't want there to be, 2 minutes of silence as like, is he done? And what's going on here? I mean, we try to make it conversational, because on trial tends to be a very stop, start, stop, talk, because Sean and I would talk over each other, and that got irritating very quickly for both of us. So, it's like it's trying to find that balance between making these podcasts entertaining and conversational. And you're right, talking over each other creates audio problems, unpleasant audio.
Yeah, it's mostly trying to figure out where each of us is going to stop and when we're going to start back up, and it can be problematic. But again, I appreciated being told that was becoming a problem. So again, Mark and I are happy to take criticism. We're happy to take suggestions. Always appreciated. The only thing I have is this coming Saturday in the MMA Zone of 411mania.com, I will have live coverage of UFC Fight Night 107. It's a pretty generic London card. It's a Fight Pass exclusive, too. So, yeah.
And if you want to see Herculoids versus Thundar the Barbarian become a reality, and you want me to make it, send me money. I'll set up a Kickstarter, and you guys can fund this project for me, and we'll film it. Live action, Herculoids versus Thundar the Barbarian, the Hanna-Barbera-verse. I'm waiting for you to support me on this, folks.
To the human race, please do not. If Mark starts this, I will have my own Kickstarter. It will be for about $1,000. That will cover my round-trip airfare to Florida and a few essential items for permanently sabotaging this. And it will be a much better use of your time and money.
Are we done?
I can't think of a better note to end on than me promising to sabotage your dream. That is your favorite thing ever for the next 5 minutes.
Yup, it's not getting any better than that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back. Be well, be safe, and behave.
Ladies and gentlemen, today's opponents on Man versus Train. At the crossing, we have Rick, a 175-pound frustrated man who's running late for work. And on the tracks, we have Bull, a 1 million-pound freight train that takes a mile to stop. Let's see who comes out on top.
You can't beat a train, so don't try. Stop. Trains can't. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.